I'm great.
Good. Well, my name is Dr. Heidi Pitak, and I live in the red state of Tennessee. I'm a conservative Christian, church going. I vote conservatively. I live pretty conservatively. I am pretty much live in a community of relatively conservative people, and in the Bible Belt here in America. And Kelly and I have been friends for 30 years. We met
Right. And I am a gal who lives in a blue state. Well, actually, I think it's more of a blue city. The rest of the state is kind of red.
Really?
But Seattle is very blue, very progressive. And I vote Democratic progressive. I do not go to church. I do not believe. I consider myself a non-theist. And I'm pretty much on the opposite end of Heidi's spectrum.
Interesting.
And we love each other dearly.
We do. We love each other dearly. We're on two sides of the fence, but we manage to sit on the fence and have conversations.
Right.
Actually,
we got our comfy seats.
Hop over each other's fences and have conversations.
Right.
So one of the things that I think is really important is for us to learn to actually listen with empathy. And I think one of the most important ways that we do that is by telling stories. And we don't need to tell great big long drawn out stories to each other today. But one of the hot buttons in most relationships, a lot of relationships, is religion. I have seen people absolutely go head to head over religion. Each person has their agenda and they're just spouting it. They're attacking each other. And all that does is create more division. It makes each person feel like they are in a battle with each other. And that does absolutely nothing for the relationship. So Kelly and I are going to talk about religion this morning. And instead of just arguing with each other, like a lot of people would do, we are going to tell a story that we think encapsulates kind of our one moment in our journey towards believing what we believe, because it's the stories behind what we believe that help to formulate for us what we believe.
Right. And I think the important point to make is that when we tell those stories, we endeavor to tell them from a place of the heart and the place of sharing ourselves fully, as opposed to a place of trying to convince the other person. It's more about sharing who we are to the other person so that they may know us better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's that heart connection.
Right.
That we feel is so important.
Right.
And so we've talked a few minutes before we began recording just about how so often I think we are afraid the other person has an agenda, and that fear can make us be on our guard. Like we're looking for it. We're looking for evidence that you're trying to change me. You're trying to make me believe what you believe. And so we put up guards. Or I might be afraid that you're trying to break down everything I believe so that I won't believe it anymore. You know what I mean? And those to be able to lay aside those fears and to say, Kelly, I'm going to trust you that when you hear my story, that you will accept it for what it is, and you will accept me for who I am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the same for you, that I promise you that when you tell me your story, that I will hold that as something precious, and I won't try to take it apart, but I will accept it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I will accept you for who you are, love you for who you are.
Right. And this is about building a foundation of trust.
Yeah.
And from a place of trust, I believe it's much more possible and safer to potentially go to those places if or when down the road there is an issue where you seriously want to talk to your friend or the person you're in relationship that you have a problem with, and you would like them to consider a different point of view.
Yeah.
But the problem is that we often go to that place of wanting to get them to change their mind, change their thinking, make them wrong, before there's even a foundation of trust and deep understanding that at the heart we honestly and deeply value the core of the other person, value each other at the core.
Yeah.
Because that's not to say that we aren't going to get into conflict and have to have difficult conversations where we'll say, actually, I think you're wrong. Mm-hmm. And those conversations happen, you know?
Yes. And
so we're not,
to believe.
Yeah, we're not, sorry, what were you going to say?
I give you the freedom to believe that I'm wrong, and
right.
you the freedom to believe that you're wrong, but that doesn't keep us from having a relationship with each other.
Exactly. And that was a point I wanted to make, because so much of what motivated our conversations with each other is that we see relationships breaking down. We see people not even trying to relate to each other because they don't believe the same things.
Right. And so they're not asking the curious questions that encourage someone else to tell the story that contributed to what they believe now. Because
exactly.
we're made up of stories. We all have stories in our background. We aren't little people that exist in vacuums with these beliefs we've suddenly come to believe. We have stories that are in our background that have made up who we are.
Exactly. So with that, I was curious if you could tell me what it was that, like, what were some 1 or 2 or 3 pivotal moments in your life that really solidified your current belief system around religion? Like, what made you the devout Christian you are today?
Right. Well, so I was raised in a Christian home and raised with, I think, the Bible being something, it was something daily that we read together and we prayed together. So it was very much a part of the culture in which I grew up as well. But a couple different points when I made it my own, because I think each person, you know, no matter what you grow up with, at some point you have to either make it your own or you go a different direction. And for me, we moved a lot. And one of my most difficult moves was we moved from Spokane, Washington to Irvine, California. And if you know those two places, they are so completely different. Spokane is homey with little old houses on the streets and people that help each other. You know, it's just a very homey place to live. And then I moved to Irvine. It's condos that all look alike. Nobody knows, the neighbors pretty much don't know each other. There's not a whole lot of a sense of community because it's pretty spread out. And I went to a school in the middle of 7th grade, didn't know a soul. And I felt very, very alone. I felt very alone. And I had a lot of fears during that time in my life. I was just afraid. I was afraid of everything. And I can remember walking through the school. It was an outdoor school because the weather is really nice. Would walk outdoor at school and be completely by myself and try to find a place to sit to eat lunch, and there'd be a couple girls sitting on a bench, and I would think, well, I wonder if I could sit kind of near them. Maybe if somebody looked over, they would think, hey, I think they must be all friends. And then I wouldn't look like I was all by myself and no friends. But during that season, I started reading the book of Psalms because I knew it to be a really comforting book, because David felt lonely a lot. And when I still have that Bible and I look back and it's got like tear stains all over it because I would just I would cry all over it. And thank God that that I wasn't alone. And the words of David really felt very much like my words, like crying out to God and saying, I need you right now because I feel so alone. And then when I would go to school, I remember walking through the halls and talking to God in my head and saying, thank you that you are with me, that I'm not alone. I feel like I'm alone, but I'm not alone right now. And you're holding my hand, you're walking with me. And Jesus is very much here. He's very present with me. And that gave me a great sense of comfort during those very difficult and lonely years. And then once I got into college, I went through a season where I said, I grew up with this knowing about Jesus, but who is he really? And do I really believe that he's a son of God? And am I really going to put all my faith for my salvation in this? And like, I sing Jesus loves me, but what's that about? Like, does he really love me? And do I really believe all of this? So I spent quite a long time studying the book of John and visiting different churches and things, and but just did a lot of study on my own, just asking myself, is this really what I believe? Is this how I'm going to live the rest of my life, is believing this? Do I really believe it? And I got to the end of the book of John, and it was like, oh my goodness, yes, I believe it with all that I am, and I can't not. This is what I want to believe. And I felt very confident in that. And I had such a great sense of peace that I had really wrestled with it really hard. And then I had landed there and said, okay, it's not that I won't have any questions the rest of my life, but I'm going to just trust from now on. I'm going to believe and I'm going to trust. So those are kind of my two big pivotal ones. I think one of them was very emotional for me, those years feeling very alone. And then the other one was a lot more from it is mind and heart, but it felt very much like as an academic, as a scholar saying, is there evidence to believe what I believe? And I was able to land in that place of confidence and peace. So those are my two big ones.
Yeah, how you summed that up, that was what was striking me, was just the two aspects of yourself, how it came to believe that. So that very like vulnerable place that was fed by this belief, and it brought you comfort because, oh my gosh, I remember that time. I was so uncomfortable. So I can only imagine. I was imagining myself doing what you were saying you were doing. And I can definitely feel that discomfort, and how you believing that God was walking next to you would bring incredible comfort.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could get that. And the importance of coming to a place of agency, like your own understanding, your own self-motivated and self-determined decision in that belief as an older, more rational, person.
Right.
So yeah, that makes sense to me.
I feel very listened to, having you reflect that back to me. It feels really good.
Yeah, and it's like I can completely accept that and not feel like it conflicts with anything I hold dear, So yeah. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Yes. So tell me about you. What are a couple of pivotal moments in your life that have led you to where you are?
I don't know that I have two standout moments like you had. It's more of a series of things that I'll try to keep succinct. I like you was also raised Christian, but the difference in my household was that my father derived great pleasure out of being a question asker and a bit of a devil's advocate. And he himself was had spent years doing meditation and yoga at the Vedanta temple in Hollywood, actually.
Wow.
And so when they had me and I was of a certain age, they realized that they wanted me to be raised with a sense of faith or religion. And so they spent a lot of time searching for a church, and they settled on a church where the minister, like, it was a Presbyterian church, but it was actually a minister who was, I guess, I mean, at the time I didn't know it, but he was rather alternative in his beliefs. And he actually said, you know, Jesus is just one of many pathways to God. So it wasn't this dogma of like, Jesus is the only way. And so that was the atmosphere that I was raised in. And then so when I went to college, I was looking for a similar church. Like, I went to University Presbyterian Church in the U District in Seattle, and it was a very different experience. People spent a lot of time testifying and evangelizing. And so at that point I realized, oh, I am out of step with the generalized thinking in this mindset. And that actually was more in keeping with my identity, because I had always felt out of step. I too had a lot of loneliness at school and growing up. And I realized retroactively that that was actually, well, I felt a lot of pain about it. I was, I got a lot of, I don't know if power is the right word, but I got something out of it. I got energy out of feeling like I was out of step, or being out of step, or being unique, being special. You know, you can go down and pathologize it all you want, but you know, but that was an aspect of it. And so when I realized that I didn't quite hold the belief patterns of this Presbyterian church, then I kind of explored that further. Like, I started asking more questions and started taking on more of what I learned from my father, which was, I mean, in the most uncouth version of it, I enjoyed making people uncomfortable, which is not really who I am now. It's not. I mean, I actually enjoy more connecting with people, but it started out as being the uncomfortable squeaky wheel. And then, but my own, like, how it fed me, because I did not feel settled in the Christian ideals or what was taught in the Bible. I always like, that doesn't quite sit right with me. I couldn't force myself to fit in what felt like a rigid box. And not saying that's what it is. It's just,
right,
you know, how I experienced it.
yeah,
Right. Because I realize that you and others can experience profound freedom in it, but it just, like, going through my story. And it also, when I did, going back just a little bit, when I did firmly believe in Christianity as a child and up through high school, I felt so much more fear of evil. And that was profoundly uncomfortable. It was this polarized experience of, like, this is black, this is white, this is bad, this is good, and I have to stand for good. And I couldn't. And then what would happen is the part of me that did feel hateful thoughts, or did feel shadowy things, or did not fit in the pure white, that started agitating. And so it just didn't, in my system, it felt crazy making to polarize things too much. So when I finally came to this place of like where I'm at now, which is there's the capacity for all within everything. Within me, there's the capacity for divine good. Within me, there's the capacity for profound evil. You know, to just sit in that realization, that is more calming and sanity producing than anything I've experienced. Mm-hmm. And then it helps me in turn have compassion, more compassion for people who choose to be evil. Mm-hmm. Because I can see how that capacity resides in me, you know?
Yeah.
And so really like what it was that brought me to it was a combination of, yes, what I was raised with, but also just my own striving for feeling a deep sense of inner peace. Mm-hmm. And a deep sense of like being able to feel profound love. Mm-hmm. And right. So it's like, and I'm actually kind of bemused at how my path has gotten me here.
Wow.
But I feel incredibly grateful for everything that has gotten me to this place, because I do feel deeply sane and I can tap into profound love, you know, so I'm good. I'm happy.
Thank you for sharing that. And thinking about your story, I can understand how your environment definitely influenced you, your culture that contributed a lot. And I remember meeting your dad, and I remember him being a devil's advocate, and he just wasn't afraid to make you feel uncomfortable.
Right.
But he was a great guy, and I loved him too. Mm-hmm. And I can see how your experiences in college too, and experiencing what you did with feeling out of step, or feeling like that would be a box that you would feel confined within. I can see how you could experience that as well. And one of the things I appreciate that you said is that we all have the capacity for great evil, which gives us compassion for those who do commit very evil things, and I agree with you, we're all one step away from that. And then we all have capacity for a great love and capacity for great evil. So you and we're on the same page with that, for sure. Yeah. But thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks for seeing me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't know any of those pieces of your story until just now. I think that I had made assumptions about your story and what must have led you to walk away from the faith that you had when we were kids. And hearing your story helps me understand you and know you, and to put my assumptions aside and to see you for who you are, and to know you for who you are, and to have empathy for where you are, and to say, I can see how you have come to the place where you are now.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to ask you the question of like, what would you want someone like me with my belief system to deeply understand about you? And before you answer that, like I'm teasing out the motivation. So I think this actually goes back into assumed judgments that we think the other person holds.
Yeah.
So I just want to name that so that we're fully responsible, around that. But I think, I don't know, it feels like that would be an interesting thing to explore on both sides, because it also dives into like vulnerability. It's like, oh, I'm assuming that you hold this judgment, and here's what I want you to see about me and my vulnerability. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the things that I've read that people write about Christians and things that people have said to me, I think they lump all Christians in this um, big group of people who are hypocrites. I even read somebody on Facebook had said, yeah, those Christians are all evil bastards. And, we hear all kinds of scandals and immoral things and things that people say that they're Christians, and then they go and abuse their kids, or they just terrible things. And I get really mad, because I think any of us who say that we believe in God, or that we are believers in Christ, that we should hold ourselves to a standard of kindness and of love, for sure, knowing at the same time that we all have great capacity for evil.
Yeah.
So a couple things. I don't want to be lumped into that category, even though I know that I think terrible thoughts and have committed, all kinds of sins in my own life.
How would you state that in as opposed to, I don't want, what do you want? What would you like me to understand about you?
Let me see. That's a good question, Kelly. I want you to understand that I am a lover, that I love the people around me, that I love my kids to the best of my ability, that I love my friends who don't believe like I do, that I love them greatly. And while I've been called intolerant and a bigot and all of those things, me holding to the beliefs that I hold does not mean that I judge everyone around me. It means that I am a great big lover, that I love, and I love you as my friend, and anybody who's watching this right now that would like to lump me in the category of all hypocritical, bigoted Christians, that I know I'm not perfect, but that I am a lover, and that I care deeply about others, and that I don't walk around judging other people. I'm not the judge, and it's not my job to do that. It's my job to care and to love, and to, if I'm asked or invited, then I'll tell someone what I believe. But my desire, if my desire for other people to come to the same knowledge or come to the same faith is the same as anyone who has found something good and they want to tell other people about it. Like, I have amazing ginger water. I want you to, drink the ginger water. It's amazing. Or, oh my goodness, I found this amazing CSA where they have fabulous produce and organic grass-fed beef. Oh, I should tell you about the CSA. It's a great CSA. So it's that part in me that says, right, oh my goodness, I found something wonderful and great, and I love it, and it's made me who I am. So any desire for other people to know about that is because of my heart of love to want other people to experience it too.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I just want to say, it's like when you shifted from I don't want to I want, it just like hearing you say, you know, I want people to know that I'm a lover. I just felt my heart open up, and that deeply touched me. And I really get that, like, that difference, which is a profound difference of like when you or someone like you who feels just deeply jazzed about their Christian faith share those things, that I don't need to take that as you trying to change me.
Right.
That's actually coming from a place of joy and just wanting to share
Right.
what brings you joy. And that I can accept. So I have
a really good question for me, Kelly, when you switched it to what do you want? Because I think that I do a lot of, oh my goodness, I can't believe that Christians are painting me in that kind of light by what they're doing and how the media is telling these stories of, and calling these people Christians, which I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying I don't belong in that category. But to go from what do I not want you to see me as to what do you want me to see you as? It's a very different place.
Well, and just observing your energy difference too. It's like when you were in that place of I don't want to be seen as this, it was like you're making a stand and you're bolstering yourself and you're actually setting yourself up for resistance and pushback, which is a very different energy from this is my heart. I want you to see my heart.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
So,
how about you? How would you like me or others to say?
I have this quote on my Facebook page from this book called The Sparrow by, I think it's Mary Gaskell. And there's a character in there who is a woman who is an atheist, and she was talking to a Jesuit priest in the book, and she said, I don't need the allure of heaven or the threat of hell to encourage me to do the right thing. And so that like encapsulates what I really would like people of faith to deeply trust, is that I may not have your belief systems, but I am deeply moved and deeply motivated by higher principles that I strive for. Like higher principles of love and connection and inclusion and compassion. And to trust that those are deeply in me. And because I have a fear or a concern because of what I've heard and people say is like, well, you know, where's your moral compass? You know, what creates your moral compass? And if you don't have a belief in a higher power or like a God or a, you know, a parental figure of God. So yeah, it's just this, I would like for my heart to be deeply trusted.
Yeah.
And my motivations to be deeply trusted.
Well, I see all those things in you. And to be honest, I would not be doing this project with you if I did not trust your heart. And I do. And I
thank you.
I love that your heart of compassion and your commitment to higher principles, and those things are so admirable and beautiful, really beautiful.
Thank you. Well, this has been another great talk, Heidi. Thank you so much.
It's been a great talk. Thank you, Kelly.
Till next time.
All right. Mwah. Bye.